What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of SEC Talk with Holden and Cody. Hope you guys are doing all right this evening. It's been a pretty wild weekend of football all around, not only just in the SEC, but around the rest of the country as well. And we're going to bring you some of the information from those games and beyond. Cody, what a weekend it's been. I know Alabama and a couple of the other teams had off in the SEC, so we only had a few games this weekend, which was kind of nice, but nonetheless, had a few games, so we got a few to talk about. How's everything looking your way this evening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, we ain't had, but 4 games this past weekend, so wasn't really a lot going on for the most part, but there's still some interesting games to watch. So, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's it. So you guys, we're going to do just like normal. Got a little bit of news to touch on, some stuff that's came out. Obviously, we're a day later than we normally are. I've been on vacation and just came back today, so we're jumping on here, going to get this episode up for you guys. So you'll get it a day later, but nonetheless, you'll still at least get it. But we'll run through the news, hit your top 25 real quick. We're going to try to keep it short, sweet, and simple this evening. Run through the 4 games that happened, and then really talk about one of the key games that happened outside of the SEC that has a lot of playoff implication, and in the end may not have any implication just based on the game. But we'll talk about it a little bit coming up. So, Cody, without further ado, if you want to, you can go ahead and run through some of the news I know that we talked about just a little bit ago.
Yeah, I think really the biggest news, once again, there's another football player that was involved in a vehicle wreck. This one coming from Alabama, and the backup running back in Trey Sanders. From what I've read up on it, he is fine, but he's going to be out indefinitely due to that wreck, so we'll have to keep an eye on him.
All right. Yeah, definitely prayers out to him and his family, obviously having to deal with that for sure.
But, he actually got flew to UAB for surgery, so he'll be out indefinitely, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Speaking of which, big matchup this coming up weekend could be postponed due to another coronavirus. LSU has a rise in coronavirus cases, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what comes about it. As of right now, it's still on, along with Mississippi State and Auburn game being postponed till December 12th, also due to a high rise in corona cases at Mississippi State.
Yeah, when I saw that break earlier, I did see that they were one man shy of having to cancel the game this previous weekend against Vanderbilt, and that may have been very well why that game was a lot closer than we anticipated it being. But I mean, when you've got those numbers as high as they were, I think it's like a 53-man roster, and I think they had 54 that they played against Vandy, and I think that number's just right there on the cusp. And playing a team like Auburn, you definitely don't want to have not a lot of guys out there, not a bunch of your key guys, and that all it took was one other guy getting it after that Vandy game, and you just hope that was a guy that was hopefully on the sideline and never really saw the field or came into contact with some of the other players for that matter at all. So keep an eye out on that and some of the other stuff going around as well.
Yeah, and another team I've seen that has an issue with Texas A&M health activity after multiple positive cases, so they're going to do some more tests there at A&M also.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, prayers out to anybody that's coming down with this thing. Obviously, we've had a big week of a bunch of events going on last week, so this weekend's game kind of tempered some of the stuff that we had going on around the country. You kind of had to to have a little bit of a regular Saturday and watching some of these games, and some of them were really close, and some of them were a lot better than we thought they were going to turn out to be. And we do have a good bit of a change up in the top 25, so Cody, if you're good with it, I'm gonna slip through it unless you got a little bit more news that you want to hit real quick.
I think that's pretty much it on Drayton. The only other thing I saw, and if you're fine with it, we'll jump into it, is that Florida-Georgia game.
Uh-huh.
Friday and Kyle Pitts is questionable with concussion.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was definitely a big hit, and as soon as it happened, I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, watching it for sure, and seeing basically both guys just kind of go limp for just a split second, and then luckily, the defender there for Georgia, he got up, didn't really look like he knew where he was, even though it did, and Kyle Pitts got up, and you could tell Kyle Pitts was definitely emotional when having to leave the field. I think because he really wanted to play, but being in that concussion protocol, that definitely does it. And same for the Georgia defender. He was also in, I think that Lewis Seen is who it was. He's actually still in concussion protocol starting this week. So he's day-to-day as far as this upcoming matchup that they have against Missouri this upcoming weekend. And Florida, I think they have, who is there? They got Arkansas this coming weekend?
Yeah.
Well, you definitely don't want to sleep on them. So that'll definitely be one that they're going to want to be healthy for, and more than likely, I would imagine Kyle Pitts will be back for that one. But that was, like you said, it was a huge hit, much bigger of a hit than I anticipated seeing. I do know that in an interview that I don't know if it was Lewis Seen or no, it was Kirby actually. He was saying that when he talked to him, they don't teach guys to hit you up high. They teaches you to tackle the middle of either a body or a bag, whatever it is that they're practicing with. And he's said he's been trying to teach him to go full speed into practice and hitting people. And I think he finally took that to note, and he told Kirby, that looking back at the replay and everything, that if you can tell that when Kyle Pitts caught it, he kind of curled down, getting ready to be hit, anticipating the hit. And when that happened, it just so happened that he curled down enough that it was a head-to-head, because Georgia's not out there head-hunting. I don't think Kirby's got those guys looking for that. Unfortunately for Kyle Pitts, he just kind of prepared for the hit and got a little too low, and it ended up rocking both of them. But definitely a huge hit, so prayers to both of them as far as their brains go. Hopefully they can take that protocol, take the precautions that they need to, get the rest and all that's required to be able to get back on the field and play and continue.
It's like, that, if you watch that video, that was not intentionally targeted.
Yeah.
Because they called it, which, we understand that was the result, but at the same time, it wasn't intentional.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, let's run.
He does, and that's, but because of him going down like he did, you get that head-to-head contact and you get the results of it like we did.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I'll tell you what, let's run through the top 25 real quick, and then we'll jump into those games. All right, so running through the top 25 here, you do have a new top team in the nation that I think we kind of expected after this weekend. Alabama does jump up to that top spot. Notre Dame right behind them after taking down number 1 Clemson in a huge game, a very, very good game, which we'll get to probably at the end of the show. Ohio State does get to creep up into that 3 spot. Clemson only falls down to number 4, and deservedly so, after losing to a top 4 team in the country. Following it up, look who you got. 2 more SEC teams. Texas A&M in that 5 spot. Florida in number 6 after taking down Georgia. Cincinnati hanging around there at number 7 spot. BYU at 8. Miami at 9. Indiana surging up to 10 spot. Oregon at 11. Georgia falls down to 12 after falling to Florida. Wisconsin there in the 13th spot. Oklahoma State 14. Coastal Carolina keeps on winning, keeps on driving up the board there as well at 15. Marshall at 16, undefeated still. Iowa State 17. Oklahoma still moving their way up as well after falling out of the ranks earlier in the season at 18. SMU at 19. Southern Cal, look at here, in that 20 spot. Texas in 21. Liberty still undefeated and moving up as well in 22. Northwestern undefeated at 3-0 in 23. Auburn stays right there where 24 is. And look who's back in the rankings. I know, Cody, you're probably happy about this. It is the Louisiana Raging Cajuns.
Hey, look, man, don't be hitting on my Raging Cajuns.
Hey, I'm not hating on them at all. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and jump right into that 3:30 kick that was Florida and Georgia. What a great game. First half of this game is all that you wanted it to be. Good scoring affair. Georgia's offense looked really good in that first quarter. First play of the game, Georgia's up on a 75-yard touchdown run from Zamir White down the left sideline. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, Georgia gets off to a 7-point lead on the first play of the game. And I was like, there's a chance here. There's a chance that Georgia's going to make this a lot tighter because they're missing a lot of guys from injury. Even on the offensive side, they were still missing a couple guys starting this game.
Yeah, and watching that play, I mean, I don't know if it was just, I think it was more of a boosted coverage on Florida. Because I think they were thinking pass, or they were thinking run up the middle, and he just broke it outside and was gone. But, I mean, it was a good first half game, and then, of course, you had the receiver for Georgia who broke his ankle.
Yeah, Marcus Roseman. You know, they actually said that it didn't break it. They just said it was dislocated. He did have. I did catch word today. He did have surgery on it. He will be out for the rest of the season, but they do expect him to make a full recovery, so that's a good thing. It wasn't pretty, regardless.
I don't care. That thing was broken.
Yeah, looking at it as soon as I saw him on the ground, I was like, "Oh, look at his leg, look at his leg!" And everybody that was watching it with us, they were doing the same thing. And then CBS, for whatever reason, just kept replaying it, and then they wanted to replay it. They wanted to replay it to be able to see if he was actually in the end zone. And I'm thinking, if you do that, you're going to see this guy's leg or his ankle go sideways again. And they did it. Then they come back from the break. They said, well, this is a pretty gruesome injury. We're not going to show it to you again. A minute later, they show it to you again. Nonetheless, when that happened, that's Marcus Roseman Jackson. And when that happened, it was a 32-yard touchdown pass from Stetson Bennett. Not only does he mess his ankle up, Stetson Bennett took a lick on that shoulder, which turns out that he actually separated that shoulder on the hip to put Georgia up 14-0. But the thing that I looked at was we're at 11 minutes and 44 seconds left in the first quarter, and Georgia is up 14-0. And at this point, I was thinking, well, you know, Georgia's got a really good chance to hang in there on this. Well, then you turn around. Short time later, by the time we get to the end of the first quarter, it's tied up. We've got 28 points in the first quarter alone between Florida and Georgia, and you're looking at a 14-14 even matchup headed to the second quarter. Fast pace for both teams getting it going from that point on.
Yeah, and I think Florida just took advantage of all the injuries that Georgia had and just ran on top. Kyle Trask, like he went missing a beat. We talked about the hit on Kyle Pitts. It's Kyle Pitts. And his replacement comes in, they throw a touchdown pass to him, I think like 2 plays later.
Mm-hmm.
Or the next play.
Yeah, I think that was it, yeah.
Florida has some really good backups there. And I think with the injuries from Auburn kind of helped with that. I think if Georgia was full team, no injuries, everybody was healthy,
mm-hmm.
I think that game is closer than what it came out to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree, because even looking at you look at the second half of this game, I mean, going into the second half, Florida's leading this one 38-21. It's not out of hand yet, but Florida's got the momentum for sure because they're getting the ball back when they come out of the half. And then they do. They go out and they do. Georgia holds them to a field goal, long field goal. They get it. Puts Florida up 41-21. A late touchdown late in the third quarter by Kearis Jackson when DeJuan Mathis was in. Puts them up still pretty far away, but 41-28. And then the fourth quarter comes along. Georgia misses a couple of opportunities with drop balls and guys that are wide open that were missed. And they also turned around on defense and missed the opportunity at a pick six and a couple other really big plays that could have swung it. I mean, you take a pick six in that and a guy catching the ball over the top, and you're looking at Georgia's actually leading that 45-44, or excuse me, at the time would have been 42-41. So a ton of opportunities for Georgia, and to be as beat up as they were, to not necessarily be out of reach of that game, I was actually pretty surprised with Georgia to be able to, because again, so many missed opportunities, not only from Stetson, to pop that shoulder out and then come back like he did, even though they put DeJuan in for a little while. He started making some throws, and then you could tell he was missing some guys and overthrowing some guys. And then when that interception came, it was just time. I was sitting there thinking, okay, in this kind of a game, you can't make that big of a mistake. And unfortunately, he did. It looked like Kirby sat him down and talked to him and said, hey, unfortunately, we're going to have to make a change here because we can't have these mistakes, especially in this spot. Makes the change. DeJuan comes in. Not really much better. which to me was kind of a point watching it that I was looking, going, okay, I can see why Stetson may have been the guy. Nothing against DeJuan. He had a couple of guys wide open, too, that he missed. He had a couple of guys that dropped balls as well. Just missed opportunities on both sides of the ball. And I'm like you. I think if you get a lot of these injuries back before this game, maybe there's a bye week like they were supposed to be before this game, and Georgia can get some of those guys back, this could be a completely different ball game. Now, the unfortunate thing, this will be the first time after the 44-28 loss to the Gators, this will be the first time that Georgia does not have their own fate in their own hands since 2016. So since that season, Georgia has pretty much been able to run and own the East. And unfortunately, this year, it's up to Florida, basically. Florida has to lose 2 games out of the East for Georgia to have a chance to be able to jump back up into that conversation. They also have to win out. So looking tough right now. A lot of our predictions as far as Georgia, Alabama meeting in the SEC Championship are really up in the air right now. So the talks that we had earlier about the rematch, for now we're going to have to put it on the back burner because right now it's going to be Florida and it's going to be Bama matching up. And all I can say about that is that's going to be a good one. Two big offenses again. And, last year we weren't really sure about LSU until later in the season. It could be one of those scenarios again. Maybe everybody's not really sure about them, but who knows? They could show up.
Yeah, well, I think they're still on the back burner too. We'll definitely find out this weekend what LSU has up in store. But jumping on down to our next game there, in a surprising victory, or surprisingly close game, I don't think we were predicting it to come this close, was Mississippi State and Vandy.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like you. I was surprised, and then obviously to learn that they were just one man shy of basically having to call the game anyway. So they're missing a lot of guys coming into this game. I mean, Will Rogers ends up being your quarterback. Your main running back there, Marks, is your main carrier, and he only carried for 10 yards as a leader in that game. So, yeah, that one's a little bit different than I anticipated seeing. A lot closer. And Vandy had to be kind of excited to know. But Mississippi State also made Vandy, I think, turn the ball over 5 times. So that makes a pretty big difference in the game as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes a huge difference there. But Vandy, once again, showing, don't sleep on them because they can surprise you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because let's see,
really
they fumbled the ball twice, and Seals also threw 3 interceptions for Vandy. So there's another side of that if Vandy didn't have as many turnovers, because, he did throw 336 yards. If they didn't have as many turnovers as they did, this could be a different ballgame. We could be talking about Mississippi State being 1-4 and Vandy being 1-4, which they're both, obviously, that's the bottom of the East and the West right now that just played. And in the end, Mississippi State does get the edge out, basically.
Another close victory there for Sam Pittman or not Sam Pittman, but Leach and Mississippi State.
Yeah, they started off on a mighty high horse just to kind of trickle back down to where they are now.
Oh, yeah. Nonetheless.
Yeah, next up in the game, we've got Texas A&M and South Carolina. Another one that I thought was going to be a bit closer than it was, and it kind of makes you wonder, how hot is that seat of Will Muschamp's getting up there in South Carolina after this one, after A&M just comes in and absolutely mollywops them 48-3.
Yeah, A&M came out with a vengeance this year. I don't know what Jimbo Fisher said to the boy. But they came out to play against South Carolina and they showed out.
Yeah. How about the backup freshman quarterback in Haynes King going 1 for 1 on a 42-yard touchdown pass?
And they keep the yard
99.9. It doesn't get any better than that, does it?
If I was him, I'd say, I quit now. I'm retired. I'm done.
Yeah, and that came with 1 minute and 2 seconds left. They got the game in hand. I mean, what can you do? You put the freshman in there, he gets the opportunity, and he just chunks that tater down the field. No, not quite. Kellerman ends the night, 4 touchdowns. Isaiah Spiller, he does rush the ball, 131 yards. They ran for 264 yards, threw the ball for 266 yards. So very even on the rushing and the passing side of things. So big game there for A&M. A&M continues to look dominant after starting the season really slow and really getting it going now. And the last one that we're looking at here was the one I was really looking forward to, outside of obviously watching the big matchup of Florida-Georgia, which was Tennessee and Arkansas. And you and I picked this one right. We took the underdog, and the underdog got it done.
Yeah, Arkansas, I figured with them being at home, had a little bit of advantage. Having Felipe Franks back there is really good, having that experience. So I'm not really shocked the way this one turned out. But at the same time, I think it could have went either way.
Yeah. Tennessee really tried to get the ball going, throwing 3 different quarterbacks in there. Bailey goes 6 for 9, 65 yards, throws 2 picks. Jaron Garantano did go in 5 for 8, 42 yards. And then they even put Maurer in there, but he goes 0 for 4. They only threw the ball 107 yards, ran the ball for 185, where Elijah Gray ran it for 123 yards and 1 touchdown, the sole touchdown on the night for Tennessee. Yeah. And then being the sole one there, we were definitely surprised by that one as far as that one went. But I'm glad Arkansas pulled it out. I was kind of looking forward to seeing how that one shook out, and for it to shake out the way that it did was awesome. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and, while we're talking about our guys, let's go ahead and throw in our Crimson Dog of the day. Cody, go ahead and hit me with who you got right there.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the performance this weekend and the way that they went up to South Carolina and dominated the Gamecocks, I'm going with Kellen Mond, quarterback from Texas A&M.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You have to read the stats for me. I ain't got them pulled up right now.
Oh, okay. He ends up 16 for 26 on the night, 224 yards, 8.6 was his average, 4 touchdowns. In the air, 83. His QBR was 83. He did rush the ball 6 times, only 34 yards, but did get another touchdown, so he ends the night at 5 touchdowns. That's who he's going to go with. I'm actually going to go back-to-back weeks with the Florida quarterback in Kyle Trask. Huge game against Georgia, puts up 474 yards, 30 for 43 on the night, averaged 11 yards, had 4 touchdowns, only 1 pick on the night, which was a pick 6 for the Dogs, but does end with a 97.4 QBR. So that is our Crimson Dogs of the day. Let's go ahead and look at the weekly picks. Both of us did really well on the weekend. You go 4-0. I did pick that one less game, not picking the Florida-Georgia game, trying to let you even back up with me. Look at that. Between the total of 7 games we got here, we go 7-0 on the weekend. That brings Cody to 16-6 and me 17-6. Let's run through Cody's real quick. He had Florida winning at 36-28. They do win at 44-28, so really close on that one. Nice pick, Cody. Had the Mississippi State winning at 38-7. Like we said, that was a lot closer than we anticipated it being at 24-17. You also had A&M beating South Carolina barely, 42-38, and they ended up absolutely whooping them 48-3. Tennessee, Arkansas, like we said, we picked it really close. You had it 35-31, ends 24-13. So really good picks, really close, especially in that Florida-Georgia game. Nice call on your side. Looking at mine, I had Mississippi State, same thing, beating Vandy a lot bigger than they did. Obviously, like we said just a minute ago, it was tighter. I had A&M beating South Carolina 37-17. And then Arkansas and Tennessee, I had Arkansas in that one 31-29. So we do end up looking really good on the night. And unfortunately for poor MadDawg, he falls again after taking Georgia with the win over Florida. And obviously that did not happen as the Gators ended up getting the big win of the weekend. But, I mean, what can you do? All you can do is try to keep things rolling for your team there. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Some, unfortunately, just not looking real good for MadDawg this year. But, nonetheless, that's pretty much what we've got for your SEC games. Let's talk about one of the biggest games in the country.
Probably one of the best finishes, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Probably one of the top games of the weekend and of the year in that number 1 Clemson versus number 4 Notre Dame double overtime thriller. Cody, start us off with it, brother.
Yeah, that game, it started off real good. Notre Dame came out of the gates, strong in first half, or pretty good first half. I ain't gonna lie, I fell asleep during the second half, so I really don't know what happened there. All I know is I woke up and it was tied up 28 going to overtime.
Yeah.
So, well, this is getting interesting.
Yep.
But the first overtime, both of them, Clemson goes down, scores, gets the field goal. Notre Dame goes down, scores, gets the field goal, make it overtime. Notre Dame, they get the ball first, they go down, score, and then Clemson gets the ball, and Notre Dame's defense finally showed up in overtime. Went out basically, and just Clemson just could not handle that pressure from Notre Dame. Now, Carolina was there at the game, but he did not play. Still don't understand how that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm assuming the only reason I can assume that he was on the sideline is because maybe the ACC's protocol is that he cannot play in a game for 14 days, but after 10 days of not or being symptom free or 10 days of being positive, whatever the case is, I'm assuming then they just say, oh well, he can be on the sideline. I mean, otherwise, what in the world? I mean, I get that he's your kind of franchise quarterback there, but I don't get that at all. If he's going to be on the sideline, I get that he's wearing a mask, but what in the world? Why wouldn't you just put a helmet on him and let him play? I guess that's ACC regulation there.
I don't know. We'd have to look into the details on that. It really didn't make no sense. I mean, you sit there and say he has to stay in quarantine for 14 days, which is fine. And the next thing you know, he's on the sideline hanging out with the team.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it does make sense. Obviously, at the end of the day, DJ Ungulele, I know a lot of people say like Uwe Ungulele or something, but I don't know. The first time I ever heard it was Ungulele, so I'm gonna keep it like that. I mean, he throws 439 yards, 2 touchdowns in the night, so he did great. The biggest thing was Clemson did not run the ball. Clemson only ran the ball for 34 yards. They did have 2 touchdowns, but obviously those are really short yard touchdowns. So not a lot as far as coming out of the ground game for Clemson. It was all through the air. And that Notre Dame defense we knew was good. Obviously, if you're giving up 40 points, which before halftime was not 40, it was obviously only 33. But still, really great game. Ian Book only throws for 310 yards, 1 touchdown, but it was enough to get the job done because rushing side of the ball, let's see, Notre Dame ended up, how many yards did Notre Dame rush for? 208, and they also threw for 310. So over 500 yards total offense right there alone. But Notre Dame, they just stayed in there. They stayed in there when they had to, got the job done at the end of the game, obviously, in double overtime. And this was the first time Notre Dame has won in a top 10 matchup. I don't remember what the stats said before watching. Yeah, before watching this game, I know they were like 0-4, 0-5 maybe. Maybe it was more than that against top 5 or top 10 opponent over the past however many years it's been.
Right.
So it was actually really
another game to kind of watch out for because that's going to probably end up being your ACC championship game there too.
Yeah, that's kind of the sad thing, is that more than likely you'll see that replay at the end of the regular, or really the not start of the postseason, but once it comes to championship games, you're going to see that matchup before you get to see. I'd rather both of them get in the playoffs this year, just because Notre Dame obviously is true. Now, if Trevor Lawrence is in that game, does it make a difference? I don't know, because with DJ throwing for again over 430 yards in the game, I mean, what else could Trevor Lawrence do outside of maybe hit more guys? Or it's really hard for me to say. I mean, DJ can run as well, so I don't know what more Trevor Lawrence really could have done as opposed to maybe give a little bit more moxie to it and get his guys a little hyped up. I'm not really sure. I think DJ did all he could do to get them in the right position. I think Notre Dame's defense stood up when it had to, and I don't know. It's kind of strange, to be honest with you.
We'll have to watch the rest of their games and kind of keep an eye on them outside.
Yeah. No.
See how they turn out.
No, that's for sure. Well, like we said, guys, we're going to keep it short, sweet, and simple for you guys as we wrap up here. That's pretty much all we're going to do for you. Again, just keeping it short and sweet. Running through these few games. Got a few more games, obviously, we'll look forward to as we come up to them later on in the week as we preview this upcoming weekend's games. Get a few more teams out on the field as long as coronavirus will let us get to it. So, Cody, I know we talked about it in the past as far as sponsors and stuff. If you guys, not sponsors, but if you guys want to support us, there'll be a link in the description. You guys can support us. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. There, if you guys want to check us out or not, whatever you guys want to do. Just appreciate you guys listening. Cody, you got any closing remarks before we get this thing rocked out of here?
I think that's pretty much it, man. I mean, like you mentioned, just we did have the opening link up on our page, guys, where y'all can be a sponsor to the show. Excuse me. And we also are on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. And if you want to send us an email, if you got something you want us to talk about or something to mention, you're more than welcome to email us. Email is at scctalk20@gmail.com.
All right, that sounds good. Outside of that, this is Holden and Cody. We out.
That's it.